this is normal for us. So thank you for being here to remember my dear brother and a lot of you who loved him, Brian. And today is going to be filled with memories and stories and some music, and we want this to be a reflection of his life and show the love that we have for him and remember him for the unique individual that he was. And with that, I want to start with a story, and then a very irreverent story, and then sing a reverent song. So I thought that would be perfect. So I'm the youngest of the Tamblyn 7, and so I grew up probably with Brian and Carter. Like we were kind of, as Carter puts it, the nuclear family of there's our 4 older siblings who kind of had their youths kind of connected, and then Brian and Carter and I kind of had all of our youths connected. And so we were all the 3 of us were very different, but Brian was definitely the cool older brother that Carter and I always wanted to be like. And so him and my mom didn't always get along because my mom was very strict, very orderly, very by the book, and Brian was very anti-establishment, we're not gonna follow the rules. And so as we can see by his container over there that has the anarchy symbol on it, that was his favorite thing to do. So I remember Brian came to me this one day and was just like, I'm really tired of Mom going through my drawers in my bedroom. Like, I can always see that she's going through my drawers because all my clothes are moved, and I'm like, there's no reason for, I don't know, like, I'm just tired of it. And I was like, well, and granted, I'm 10, all right? So I'm 10 years old, and my dad, this just shed some light on our family. My dad loved, for some reason, my parents had divorced at this time, my dad loved to take me to R-rated movies at 10. And so I had just seen RoboCop, and I was like, well, it's like, you know, when I saw RoboCop, the cocaine in the movie looked like powdered sugar. And he's like, oh, awesome, where's the powdered sugar? I was like, oh, here, let me show you, I'm 10, okay? Here's the powdered sugar, put it in a bag, and then put it in your drawer. And like, and then she's gonna think it's cocaine. And he's like, perfect, yes, let's do that. So here I am, you know, in 4th grade or whatever, 3rd grade, 4th grade, get off the bus in my little ET backpack, you know, and I'm walking up to the house, and there's cops, there's an ambulance, there's our pediatrician, our dad, everybody is out front. And I knew exactly, I walked out, I was like, oh my God, this is because of the powdered sugar. And Brian wasn't there. And so then, I think it was our pediatrician, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that he was the one that, like, no one would, like, go near it or, like, taste it or try.
Dad would.
Dad did it, that's right. Our dad stuck it, he took his powdered sugar. And so, what's amazing about that story is, you know, obviously Brian got in trouble, but he never ratted me out, which I always was, like, was so awesome. Like, he could have totally just been like, well, it's Dennis's idea. But he just he just took the blame, and he never told anyone that it was my idea. And I love Mom. I know, yeah. That's okay, she'll remember. And so,
don't blame it on Chad.
I know. Oh boy, here we are. So, with that being said, but we'll get into more stories about our brother, but I don't want to take anybody else's thunder, but there's a lot to be said about his life and his impact that he had on all of us. And they're all very different, which I love that. Like, if you asked anybody what Brian was, everybody would come up with a different definition of what he was. Oh, he's a musician. Oh, he's a farmer. Oh, he's you know, does occupational therapy. Like, there's just so many different things that he does, and that was kind of him in a nutshell. So with that being said, we're going to sing a little bit. So everybody, you're in the program here. It's hymn number 86, which I had a hymnal, and now someone stole it. So okay. hymn 86, and it's "Oh Great Thou Art." I want to hear everybody's good singing voices, not the Tamblyn Happy Birthday song.
Where's the trombone?
Oh, I forgot the trombone.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. Oh, dear. All right, so I'll sing. Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe display. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When through the woods and forest glades I wander, and hear the birds sing sweetly in the trees,
first of all, the family tradition is that we're somewhat kind of casual and funny about things, but deep down inside we mourn, and this is just our way to, I say, get through it. But so you're going to hear a lot of humor, and hopefully it doesn't offend you. But and also we like to tell stories, anecdotes about our lives that just kind of, I'd say crystallize certain moments. And I was thinking about one before I get into the prayer. This will take a few minutes, so sorry. But the story that is most favorite fanfare, because I was the middle kid between the upper echelon and then whatever, the junkyard dogs. And so I was kind of in the middle, and so I got to, kind of experience both sides, the proper family and then whatever. And so the best part was my parents divorced, my dad decided to become a boat captain. And he bought a boat that he thought was the Queen Mary. In reality, it was about a 20-foot boat. Yeah. And decided that we're going to do this little family trip to Santa Monica and take the boat there on the ocean. And so, I said, okay, fine, I'll co-pilot and help out with everything. So long story short, one day he decides, we're sitting in a restaurant, and he goes, hey, look, I'm looking at this place setting, and Catalina Island is just over there. Yeah. And I'm like, it was right next to the fish and chips are $2.99 and the cheeseburger is $4. And so he goes, we should go across the bay and go to Catalina. This would be really fun in our 20-foot boat. So this is myself, my dad, and it was Brian, Carter, and Dennis. And Dennis, how old you were?
Oh,
probably like 5.
Yeah, I remember those.
Brian was, I was driving, so I was probably 17. Brian was probably 14, or 13, somewhere in there. And so we start taking off, and everything's fine until we actually get to the ocean part, the deep water. And we have water coming out of the bow, and we get into the shipping channels. The water's a couple thousand feet deep out there. It starts turning into 3-5 foot swells, and then fog starts rolling in. And you might think, since I'm in the Queen Mary Mini, it would be loaded with navigational gear. But let me go back in time. Fortunately for the family, because this would have been a big memorial about 30 years ago, had I not done this, I said, Dad, we need a compass or something, don't we? Like, we're gonna go across this channel. Our boat had nothing, no radio, no compass, there's no iPhones. And so I happened to stop by, and there was a little convenience store there, and at the counter was this $2 compass that had like some rubber thing around it, and it was like one of those things you get out of a Cheerios box, but it actually worked. Cracker Jacks. And so, fortunately, we're down through the channel. I stop the boat and I look around, and we're completely inundated with fog. You wouldn't know north from south. You wouldn't know anywhere you're at. I have no idea where we're at. Brian's my co-pilot. My dad's completely failed us. Brian's like rushing to get everybody life jackets, trying to keep water from, inhaling the boat. And we get this little compass out. And I'm like, okay, we're going this way. And we follow this little dingy compass, and we're like, I hope that we get to Catalina, because if we don't, the next stop's Hawaii. The mini Queen Mary ain't gonna make it to Hawaii. So long story short, Dennis was my beacon, because he was there looking for the land, watching the compass. I'm navigating the boat in these swells. My dad's completely failed us. I don't know where he's at. I think you and Carter are in the cabin out front. They're probably wondering what's going to happen soon.
Some of the swells go over the boat.
We made it to Catalina, and then the next day, or that evening, somebody in a real boat came up to my dad and said, "You took that across the channel in the afternoon?" And my dad was like, "Yeah, it was really hard. It took us 6 hours." And the guy goes, "You need to go in the morning at like 6 a.m. It's like glass." So the next morning we get up at 5 and we get across this channel. It was like you could water ski on it, and it took us 40 minutes.
It was super easy.
But I was a couple days, maybe a week after Brian passed. I'll go into the prayer in a second. I want to tell you about like this moment I had. It was a dream I had that was like, you guys have dreams where it's just so impactful. You kind of just, you're never gonna really forget it. I had this dream, And it was kind of a terrible dream in the sense that like something happened to the world I lived in, and in some event, and everything was gone. And what was impactful about it, other than just being a crazy dream, was the fact that it's the only time I ever felt that there was nothing, like a void of nothing. And I thought through that moment, I'm like, well, it can't be. I mean, it can't be that, everything goes away and there's this void of nothing. There's no feeling, there's no sense of future or past, there's no love, there's no appreciation, there's no anything. It's just a void, and it's the emptiest thought when I woke up from it. I'm like, that can't be. So I started doing some research in this, and I started thinking through it. And the thing that we're all connected here about Brian is his soul. It's not his physical, it's not this, it's not his skin, it's not how he looked, although I think I was the cooler brother. And I went through and looking at the Bible and kind of trying to rationalize, kind of what is the soul? Because the soul isn't something that's, biological, right? The soul is something that we are uniquely enabled, and it's separate from the physical body. Our physical body and our soul are very different, right? I mean, the body is designed at some point, to die. The soul is actually a seed that gets placed in your body when you're born, and it's designed to thrive, past your death. And everything about his soul is what we're memorializing today, what we're celebrating. The fact that this seed grew, and now he's into this next spirit. His spirit is in this next place, and it's immortal, right? He's in God, he's with God, he's in an immortal place that is beyond this world, and he's not experiencing the dream I experienced, a void of nothing. He's experiencing the next step in his journey. And so we need to think through that, that we're celebrating the soul, and everything about the characteristics of Brian are his soul. Everything that you loved about him, everything you remember about Brian is his soul, right? Nothing about him physically, it's his soul. Now me, you remember my good looks, but with Brian, and so, his personality, his care, for like animals, he loved birds, he loved animals, his talent, his ability, to pick up an instrument and master it, how he loved his family, everything there, his humor, it was all in his soul. And so when you hear and see pictures of Brian today, you're going to experience, his soul, and that's what we love. So in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul explains what happens when Christ returns and we are raised with imperishable bodies. In this chapter, Paul likens our soul to seeds, and this is what I was talking about. What is sown doesn't come to life unless it first dies. And in the new heavenly body we're given is raised and imperishable. We are the seed that's given into this new body. And this has to happen for us to get into heaven, right? And to live immortally. So look, join me in prayer, because I've written out a prayer for this moment here. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the life of Brian, a life filled with love, music, care, humor, family. We ask you for your mercy and grace as Brian's soul embarks on his journey to eternity. Grant Brian eternal rest and peace in your loving embrace. May his soul find joy, contentment in your presence. For those who mourn, we ask you for your comfort and strength. Help us find solace in your promises and certainty of eternal life with you. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. We're now gonna have a series of reflections from family members, and I would just like for these next three speakers, just come up one at a time. I don't need to introduce each one of you. You can do that when you're speaking, and also take care when you're hearing these next speakers and the stories that you hear moving forward. There are remembrances. That doesn't mean they're true. So we like to embellish a lot, and so but they're great stories. So and that's how we remember it, and that's how it's going to be. So with that, we're going to start with Ken, and then go from there.
wanted to be advanced and not be an old fogey. And I wrote down all my notes on my iPhone. And I go, hey, look at this, this is good. And where's my iPhone? I can't find it. So I have to wing this, I guess.
Back to being advanced.
Yeah.
I guess so. Well, I was trying to figure out the order of this program. It didn't make any sense. It has me first, and it goes down the list, and it has Dennis last. And the only thing that made sense was they was by the better looking went first. And then you go down there. Sorry, Dennis. I'm sorry. It's just the program speaks.
I'm used to it.
Yeah, yeah. So, Kathleen, you have the notes.
Oh gosh. Here we go.
No, okay. Yeah. I remember when Brian was little. When Brian was little, all right, I remember him just being like the perfect kid. I mean, it was just, I was so impressed with him. He was so smart, and he was able to do just about anything, you know, and he was my favorite brother. Again, Dennis, you're not that.
No.
Sorry. I'm just insulting you left and right.
I'm used to it.
You're used to it? Okay. Okay. And it was just such a cool brother. And it ended up, I think we all came to the same conclusion. Yes. Thank you.
It's gonna time out, so you have to keep tapping it.
okay. Oh, God.
Challenging the advanced comment.
I knew DOS. I was a computer tech.
Oh, yeah.
DOS. I was like a genius. I knew the Nobel network. I could program in Word and DBase and oh man, and now look, I'm stuck here having to push a button every 5 seconds. Okay, so Brian's like really talented, and we all kind of decided that, you know, that he was like the most talented kid in our family, the smartest kid in our family, and the best looking kid in our family. And so as he started getting older, I started hanging out with him. And it was kind of cool. We'd go like different places, you know. And I was like on my I was huh? Oh, it went dark. Okay, got it. Thank you. So we'd hang out with each other, and you know, I noticed I was like muscular, blonde, a little bit better looking than I am now. And, you know, and we'd like, you know, all the women would stare at us, you know, because we're a good looking couple there, and, you know, going out around, and it was kind of cool hanging out with him, and then one day I had to go out without him. All of a sudden, nobody cared. Nobody looked at me. Nothing. It was all Brian. So it was a depressing day for me. I thought I had it. I got it. I didn't have it. It was Brian that had it the whole time. I was a diver, but I was the kind that does the springboard, does flips and stuff like that. And I took a class, and there were these 3 gorgeous, they were twins and their sister. All right, they took the class same time as me. They could care less about me. They were really good. They were better looking than me, everything, right? So I give up on them. So they like to hang out at the pool. So one time, you know, I do a spectacular dive, you know, and I thought they were watching me, and I come out of the pool, and then they wave me over. They go, wow, whoa, look at that, okay, right? And O'Brien around, so this is all me, right? So I go walking up to them, and I say hi, I put on my charm, and they go, how's Brian doing? Kathleen has the rest of the story, I think. Oh, man. Oh, dang it. Okay, got it, okay.
Challenging advanced.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what happened is Brian had injured himself at the pool, and I think he got sent to the hospital or something, and of course I went back, and that's why they did that. But it's just like my one chance. Come on, give me a break. Come on, Brian. All right. So it's I think it's kind of like me and Suzanne's fault, his sister. When we lived in Camarillo, California, we lived on a small mini ranch, and we had chickens, ducks, I don't know, and all sorts of animals. And her and I don't know why, but we connected, and we just started, like, we talked to all the animals. You know, it was crazy. We could speak any language. I can't do it now. But I could bawl like a sheep, or I could be like a goat, or chickens. Like, that was our main one. What?
Do it.
Okay, I've been challenged. Okay. Okay. There, I end right now. It's over. It's done. Okay. So yeah. All right. So anyway, I think that's where Brian got it, because he just loved chickens and animals and birds. And you know, we just, it was just, I don't know what it is, but something about our family. I could speak chicken, and then I learned to hypnotize them. Yeah, and I actually had, somebody's got the picture, I had 7 chickens hypnotized in a vast area all at the same time, and somebody took a picture of it, but it's gone, so I have no proof, but it's in my mind, I remember it. So anyway, so Brian, like, you know, I keep offending my other brothers, but Brian was like my favorite brother. Yeah. And you know, you know, Dennis is a good brother. No, he's a bad brother. Eric, you know, so. But Brian, so I think it was all of us, because he was just like, he had so much talent. So he could do anything he wanted. He was better looking than me. So, you know, if I wanted to pick up on women, I had to bring him with me, I guess. So, anyway, so that's all I have to say. So carry on.
I'm totally old school, analog, put things down.
Is our list?
It's a list. Mom was right on that one. All right, so the year is 1970. And towards the end of the year, I was 9, Ken was 10, Eric was turning 4. Yeah, the family was great. We had 2 boys, 2 girls. It was perfect. We were able to travel. Yeah, Eric wasn't a baby, more so whining, but not a baby. And we found out at the end of the year my mom was going to have another baby. It's like, well, why? It's perfect. The family's perfect. And
Why?
2 boys, 2 girls, why?
Just be honest.
No.
I was only 9.
Yeah.
So I was on my sister's bed, and we were just being silly girls. And she loves stuffed animals, so she pulled out 2 stuffed animals. One was a lion, one was a bird, and we're like, oh, we're playing with them. And we said, well, wonder what, you know, the baby's gonna be a boy or girl. Wonder what they'll be named. So we took lion, we took bird. Okay, it will be named Lurd. And we laughed. We're like, ah. And then we thought, well, let's swap it around. Bird and lion, Brian.
Wow.
But B-R-I-O-N.
Oh, yeah.
So a few months later, Mom comes home with a baby, and here's your baby brother, Brian. We're like, Suzanne, and of course, no one believed us.
Yeah, right.
Like we said, we predicted this. We're like, no. So Brian was the biggest of the 7 babies, and he definitely was the cutest because he had the blonde hair, blue eyes, and dimples. I mean, and he knew it, and he used it. So we were fortunate enough to have a set of grandparents that lived kind of close by, and I would visit, and I would hear from my grandma. Well, Brian was just over here a few days ago, and he said the cutest thing. And that's not my grandma, okay? She's strict and a woman of great virtue, and you can't pull one over on her. So he was just adorable. He said to me, you know, Grandma, I forgot what cookies taste like.
That's funny.
Wow. Yeah. And it didn't happen just once. It happened a couple of times. And I lost a little respect for my grandma. I really fell for that. So that's where it all started. And then, like Ken was saying, we had a family summer pass to this public pool. And we went as a group, like every day. And Brian was only like 5. And he befriended the lifeguards who were like high school girls. And you would
Maybe
see
sick.
Brian like this talking to them and telling the story, and then the lifeguards, oh yeah, it's so adorable. Like, should you be watching the kids? So, like Ken said, yeah, he had an accident, and the lifeguards were just visibly upset because he fell off the diving board. Well, so in 1975, Glenn Campbell came out with his #1 hit, Rhinestone Cowboy, and it was overplayed to death. And Brian picked up on the chorus. So at any moment you can say, sing Rhinestone Cowboy, you know, and he would do Rhinestone Cowboy, and he didn't know all the lyrics. So he would do it. He would do that at any time. So in the
What about
last.
the guitar? You had a guitar.
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you had your turn.
Yeah. Down and back.
It's not a discussion.
Guitar silent. Being heckled.
All right, so
Security.
Brian shared a memory. Well, refreshed my memory of a memory he had with my dad that was really special, and he just shared it just a couple months ago. So I wanted to tell you what that was. So Brian started getting into the punk rock music, and he wanted to share it with my dad. So he invited my dad to a concert. Now, my dad is classically trained, so classical is his first love, sacred music is his second love, and then show tunes.
Yeah.
So rock music, punk, you know, just way out of his comfort zone. But my dad is just all in, totally supported, wanted to see what his son was into, so he went to the concert. And it was at the Celebrity Theater, and the name of the band, I'm not comfortable saying, it starts with a B and ends in Surfer. So there would have been more than one band, and my dad sat through it. I'm sure it was agonizing, and he probably had tissue stuffed in his ear because he thought that would kind of muffle the loud sound. So nothing special happened during the show. Like I said, he probably just suffered through it. But at the end, they were able to see some of the other bands that performed. So one band was from Germany, and my dad went up to them and started speaking in German. So my dad went on church mission to Germany, and then when he came back was immediately went into the army and spent another 3 years. So he's very fluent in German. So there's Brian just in total admiration of my dad talking German to this punk rock band. So that was a memory he had. So Ken said, you know, because there's 7 kids, there's, you know, some competition, and we're always kind of comparing each other, who's smarter, who's a better athlete, and as Brian got older, we could see that he just was best at everything.
Yeah.
Now, my dad would call Brian an intellectual, and to my dad that meant that he consumed knowledge and retained it. So he was like a walking encyclopedia of everything punk. Everything, the band members, who they were influenced by, and what other band they used to be in. I mean, an encyclopedia. Same thing with birds. Whatever he was interested in, he would just consume all that knowledge. So when he found occupational therapy, he could just throw himself into it and find as much information as he could. So he was telling me about some therapy materials that he used, and one was like a weighted lap pad. And I said, well, describe that to me, because I like to sew. And I looked up a picture, and when I came out to visit, we made one together. So we bought fabric, we bought the beads, and we made one, and there's a photo in there with him with the weighted lap pad. And then he talked about a compression sleeve. It's like a total body, and it's supposed to help with anxiety. So he wasn't a seamstress, so he couldn't talk fabric. Is it like a lycra? Is it like a rib knit? I mean, I don't know. So we went to the fabric store together. So if you can imagine, I'm going to the fabrics that have some elasticity, and he's wrapping himself in the bolt of fabric going, no, not tight enough, or another one, it's too restrictive, and then we finally found the one that was perfect. And he would tell me stories about having a breakthrough with one of the kids he was giving therapy to, and the joy on the parents' voices. You know, he's never done that. He's doing this now, and he's never been able to do that. And Brian was just up for the challenge, whatever it was. I'm going to find out, you know, and he had so many different objects, whether it was a guitar or a baseball, some way of getting their attention and finding a way to help them. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did the same thing as Ken, did the typing up the notes.
But she's better at it.
Yeah.
I'm
Sure, you're much better. Make sure you cap it.
Yeah. Like
Rule of thumb, don't compare yourself. Teach us your own phone,
I'm
right?
sure they could teach us.
Yeah, like, my dad was always like, you know, like, with his health and stuff, like, he kind of always, like, knew that he wasn't gonna live a super long life, and it kind of, like, it messed with him, and then, like, you know, his habits, it just, like, didn't help that in any way. But, like, I don't know, it was, like, towards the end, like, that he was, like, really telling me that, like, he wanted to keep going, you know, like, and it's like, some of us, like, you know, we start our lives late, and that's okay, but, you know, like, everybody has their own pace in life. I just hope, like, he's found his higher power, and, like, I'll find ways to heal and keep going, but, like, to me, this is tragic. You know, he struggled to, like, function in this world, but he brought so much happiness to everybody around him. You know, when I was lost and confused in life, he always understood me and made me feel less alone. He brought, like, something so special to this world, and it's a skill that it's not rewarded financially, but it makes our lives worth it. He was stubborn and genuine, and he wasn't gonna fake politeness to keep a job or do it that he didn't want to do. Surprisingly, like, his favorite word he always said was no. You know, like, his authenticity, it was inspiring, and it, like, really healed parts of me. Logical advice he always told me was, only do one illegal thing at a time. That's bad advice. Like, that's realistic, you know? He's a contrarian, and he never wanted to fit into a stereotype. When he's going through, like, the 12-step process, one of the steps was to make amends. So the group took me aside, and they asked me, like, how has your dad wronged you during his alcoholism? And I had nothing to say. Like, I'm just really grateful that he was my dad. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Frankie. Oh, man. Now, I get to sing. All right. This is a song that I used to sing when I was younger, and then Kathleen, we were talking about something to sing. She's like, "Oh, Amazing Grace," and so, yeah. But then Overdone, yeah. But then this one, I really like the words. Just guide me to it, so.
trembling feet, guide me to thee. Let me thy mercy prove, let thine enduring love guide me to heaven above, guide me to
All right. So now we'll have a reflection with Brother Carter. It's got a great, I read this and I think it encapsulates a lot of who Brian is. And, when you're ready. And, no. Time.
Why'd you have to sing it so perfectly?
Oh, it's all your fault.
Your fault.
Oh, yeah.
He must have program up.
Classic. Classic Tamblyn.
It's not perfect.
Did the old-fashioned way, no electronics, no screens to push. So, thank you, Dennis. You really channeled Dad. We're very instrumental as a family, and then of course our cousins and uncles are all the acting stuff and stuff. Our dad was a fantastic tenor. He would always be chosen for solos at state meetings and stuff, and he was greater than life. I got the chance to sing with him a few times. I'm a baritone, so it's kind of weird to have the dad out there singing the tenor and up there singing the baritone parts. But you really channeled Dad right there, and that was absolutely beautiful. So thank you. You did him proud. So I'm not much of a public speaker, so I'm going to repeat a bunch of adjectives over and over again. The acting and speaking talent and poetry talent, all is another branch of the family. So I wrote my reflections out for Brian and what he meant to us, because he meant something different to all of us. To me, Brian was my older brother. Now I know we have older brothers and sisters. Ken, you were more like Dad 2.0. We actually lived together for a couple of years. Dad, I actually kind of raised Mitchell and Alex. You're the old, the white person in the family of the brothers. You're kind of the Dad 2.0. Eric, Kathleen, Suzanne, rest in peace. They were kind of like my cool aunts and uncle. That's kind of how they were to me. But Brian was my older brother. That's who he was to me. In fact, this has been reflected on already, but there was like the older Tamblyn kids were the California Tamblyns, and then Brian, me, and Dennis were the Arizona Tamblyns. Mm-hmm. Although Dennis is the black sheep because he actually was born here.
Yeah, the only one.
The rest of us are California born, but that's the thing about Brian and me, is that we had really no recollection. We were so young when we moved here, we had absolutely no recollection. So we all remember Wallace and Ladmo, we all remember Legend City, we all remember when I-10 ended at 51st Avenue.
Yeah.
See, so we're old school, so that's our memories as the Arizona Tamblyns. And I know we all got our own memories, experiences, and everything. I hear all these stories. We have us living in Camarillo and farms and chickens and lots of shenanigans and stuff. But those are just kind of memories that have been told to me as opposed to something we got to. But so the Arizona Tamblyn's always been Brian, Dennis, myself, And like Dennis said, you know, when after the divorce, we moved in with Mom and John, and we were just kind of like the nuclear family, you know, that's kind of how we were. And so Brian, Eric, I know you lived with us for a little while, but moved out. So Brian was always kind of like that older brother figure to me, and I always appreciated that. So he was always someone I looked up to. He was amazing. I myself was a very unpopular kid when I grew up. I was this shy, glasses, bowl cut Mormon kid with Brian's hand-me-downs, which were cool 4 years before. All right, we're talking corduroy pants, Ocean Pacific with pastel colors.
Yeah.
Yes, it was very 70s, and here is this nerdy Mormon bowl cut kid in North Scottsdale trying to get along, and it wasn't always the most. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the 80s weren't very kind to nerds.
No.
Sorry. Yeah. John Hughes has passed. Nerds are cool now. All right.
Yeah.
Right. We're cool now.
Yeah.
All right. But we weren't at the time, and that's great. But I always looked up to him because he always had that energy. He was always the smartest one in the room. He was always the extroverted one. He had all these interests that, you know, that really were part of him, but I got to experience with him. And one of them was his love of baseball. You know, we grew up, we played Little League. I don't know if that is you played too. But we played a lot of Little League. Back then, we didn't have the Diamondbacks, so we watched the Super Networks, and we always watched the Cubs and the Braves, and we were just huge fans, even though they sucked at the time. But
Yeah.
the only name I remember is Dale Murphy, and we worshiped that guy. He had a huge poster up in his room, and Brian, he really loved baseball, and he wanted to go pro, but you know, we weren't the most athletic family. But I watched him play baseball. I watched him learn instruments, so I had a passion for those two. He actually had a real love for military planes. I know as a teenager, you know, when he turned, you know, he got the counterculture stuff. It was he kind of went away from that. But we grew up like loving. Like we had books of planes and military stuff, and he got me into model building actually. So we built all these models because of him and his love for these things. So. But yeah, we grew up watching the Cubs and the Braves, and some of my favorite memories were playing Little League for him, and I wasn't very good either at that. And I wasn't very popular in my teams either, and he actually saved me from getting my butt kicked a couple of times, and I appreciate him for that too. He was always there for me and always stuck up for me, even though I was that nerdy little kid. So his love for baseball, honestly, was so strong that it kind of overrode his libertarian ideals at one point. Because I remember very specifically when the Diamondbacks came to town and they built Bank One Ballpark, and the city council said, we're gonna impose a tax. You know, we're not even put this to vote, we're gonna impose a tax on everybody, and we're gonna build a stadium. He was so mad. God, he was furious, because he loved baseball, and he's like, I'm never gonna go to a game.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna root for them. I hate this team. Like, no. Yeah. A few years later, we're in the World Series. Go Diamondbacks! Like, yeah, you know, and at some point in this, and I guess it must have been painful that year too, because we had to beat the Braves to get to the World Series.
Yeah.
That was great, but at some point during his years, Brian, he kind of started hanging with a counterculture group, and he developed his love to sticking it to the man. He listened to punk rock. He dyed his hair. Remember that? Mom was furious because he dyed his hair black up the middle, like a week before school pictures too.
Yeah.
I think Mom burned them all because I didn't see a single one of them.
I've never seen it.
Oh,
Never seen it.
yeah, I've never seen a picture.
It didn't exist.
And I think she
No.
burned them all or
Yeah.
just refused to have them. But he was like straight black
Yeah.
right up there.
I
I think it was still
remember.
blonde on the sides
Yeah,
too.
it was. It was. Yeah.
They defied our parents, especially our mom and stepdad. And one thing, as you know, as a non-athletic nerdy kid, that I really loved about him is his love for skateboarding. He was larger than life. I hope there's a picture in there somewhere of him taking that jump off the quarter pipe that we had. We built this quarter pipe, you know, and there's a picture of him just flying off of it. And he just was a natural.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, government being what it was, he left on the side of the road and they took it, thinking it was trash. So, you know, we got a bigger one. And a whole half pipe in the backyard, just, we got this acre in Paradise Valley, we had this giant half pipe, just like, it's like, there's the corals, the backyard, everything, and there's just a half pipe just sitting right there, it's like.
Awesome.
And it was great, cause it just attracted all the kids, all the friends, we were like the cool house. But, you know, being the older brother that he was, I remember when we first put it together and no one had used it yet, and he goaded me into, being the first to drop in. I did have my knee pads on, but I remember in church, I ate it. Ate it hard, but you know, and he was pumped me up, and his friends pumped me afterwards, and he always made me feel like I was included, even though I had zero ability to skate. I had a skateboard, I tried to ollie, I tried to jump, I always have a whole collection of scars on my knees from all my attempts, but every time I watched him skate, he was always just larger than life, and I loved his magnetism and all the kids that, you know, that came to our house, my cool brother, you know, they talked to me and treated me like his brother and everything, and I always appreciated that. He never said an unkind thing to me. You know, back when I was young, I had no clue what rock music was. I was like my dad. We sang in church, we went in an orchestra, you know, we played a variety of different instruments, and I didn't know what rock music was. I just knew that he loved rock music, and he liked punk music. In fact, he actually listening to him, I tried to listen to music that he listened to. I ended up listening every night to the station that's no longer in the air, it was KUKQ. They played alternative music and stuff, and it kind of got me into that. But he never would say an unkind thing to me, and because I remember one time for Christmas, I had no idea what music is, like, you know, what modern music is, and I go through the record store thinking, Brian likes music, I'll go buy something for him, and I bought a Whitesnake album. Okay. They're a hair metal band. They're pretty much the opposite of what punk is.
Yeah.
And I gave it to him, and he's like, "Oh, thank you." But you know, he made it a point a couple weeks later to come to me and tell me that was a really good album, and I'm sure he had Crossies or something. Now that I know everything, I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck was I doing? It's like never buy someone who has a hobby something for their hobby, because it's like he knows the music that he likes.
Yeah.
So, but he was amazing to me because you know he made me feel. He always made me feel. You know, at times Brian, he took me under his wing. Many times when he moved out, when he turned 18, he had a motorcycle, and whenever I'd be at my dad's on the weekends, he would pick me up. He would take me. He'd take me to parties. I was, yeah, like I said, I was just a scrawny, not Brian at all kid, taking me to his party. One of his friends were out of town, they throw these keggers and stuff, and he just dragged me to them. No one told me to drink or smoke or anything like that. I just got to hang out with his friends on just in his house, and this stuff's going on, and there's drinking red Solo cups everywhere, cigarettes everywhere. Great, but you know, everyone always made me feel included, including Brian. In fact, when I was 15, I was dating this girl, and they were hosting a party at their house, and they had a keg there, and I'm a 15-year-old kid, and daughter's there, and I'm like, oh, do you have a tap for that keg? He's like, what? How do you know what a tap is? I'm like, I've been to a couple of parties, and Dad just had given this look like, who is this kid? See, I learned a lot from him. Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't just the parties, but sometimes you just drive me along on his motorcycle 2 in the morning in the middle of Phoenix. Sometimes getting pulled over by cops, and and it was always an adventure. It was always an adventure with him. I fondly remember him on all our family vacations. He was always present when we were camping, boating, fishing, and he was always good at all of that. Driving, water skiing. He could slalom ski, is something I could never do. He was, you know, whatever he put himself, cliff diving, fishing, whatever it was, who he was, he always made me feel like I belonged. And that's why I was so immensely happy that the day that I buried my wife, Alma, we decided to do like a JP wedding. We went to the bridal show, and we're like, this is terrible, we're not gonna do that stuff. And I remember that day realizing that I didn't have any of my family coming. I didn't make a big deal of, other than my kids, sorry. But you weren't 18 yet, so you couldn't have done this part. But I was like, I messaged everyone in my family, like, hey, I'm getting married today. And I remember Brian, like an hour before, texted me like, hey, I'll be there. And he rushed out. He got there just before the ceremony. And there's a picture. I don't know if it's in there, but I'll share it on my Facebook. But of afterwards, he signed it as a witness, and he got to be there. He's basically my best man. For what a JP wedding is, he was absolutely my best man, and he always really was. I was so unbelievably grateful that he was the one to be there, because he's always been the one to be there for me. So, but there's a picture of the three of us, and he's just beaming. He's absolutely beaming, and I always cherish it. What's my favorite picture of him, honestly. Brian, another part of him that I wanted to share too briefly is that, yeah, he was a lot of things. He was a father, he was a son, he was a cousin. He was also a fantastic uncle. Just one anecdote I want to talk about. She's not here, but my daughter, Shayla, and I, we have a complicated history. I had to actually talk to her about this. She wasn't able to make it, unfortunately. But there was a time when she was a teenager and things were going south, and we needed distance from each other. And Brian took her in and let her live with him for a few months. And when I talked to Shayla after when Brian passed, and she took the news really hard, she talked about how Brian, obviously she loved animals, and him is basically a zoo. He loved the birds, he loved all the things, and she loved all of that. But Brian, in a time where she felt like crap and like a horrible human being, he treated her like a human being and brought her up from where she was at, and made her feel seen, made her feel heard, made her feel stood up for. So that's an angle of who Brian was that I want to make sure that people knew about too. He was an absolute amazing human being to everyone that ever came in touch with him, and for that I'm really grateful. I feel booked with all the stories I have with Brian. He was a musician, baseball player, chicken farmer. He was in a movie with one of my favorite actors, Bruce Campbell. Yeah, and in true Tamblyn tradition, they misspelled his name on IMDb.
Wrong, yeah.
It wouldn't be Tamblyn without misspelling that. He went from playing bass in a punk band to playing fiddle in a country band. I mean, you talk about range. There wasn't a conversation you couldn't have with him. He had strong political views, but he never made you feel like a jerk for not agreeing with him. I mean, one time he was a vegan for the longest time, for many, many years. And I remember one time I was like, how can you be vegan? I couldn't live without a steak. And he just, I'm sure you've heard this question, he just replies like, well, neither could the cow. Brian was really a modern Renaissance man. He was the coolest of all of us. Sorry, Eric.
Yeah.
Brian really was the coolest.
Yeah.
He might be second. Although Dennis is on a game show. So
I'm
that
competing against Ken, I don't want
well, here's that. But punk rock versus 80s cheese metal, I mean. Move on. He took me to a lot of his shows, his punk shows, and some of them even involved altercations with skinheads, I guess, then punks didn't get along. And sometimes it involved tear gas and running for our lives and being scared. There were some scary moments. But watching my brother rock out was worth it. He lived for our stage. I want to mention that, like, our Uncle Larry passed, a few months ago, 82 years old. He was a musician too. He was a family member of a band with what we can call the original punk band or the original garage band. Larry hated that title, but that's just kind of to remember the Standells. And, I really think Brian could give Larry a run for his money in musicianship and being on stage. He definitely probably could, Yeah, Brian didn't grow up with the cool bands like he wanted to say, but he had that star power, always larger in life. One of my last memories I have with Brian was the day he woke up in the hospital. It was really difficult for him to talk. And the first thing he really wanted to talk about was how giddy he was that Sublime was going to start touring again with the son of the deceased singer. And that's all he could talk about. That and I remember our last memory was us, in the hospital watching the Diamondbacks game together, talking about Corbin Carroll and how the week before he just missed hitting for the cycle, which is a big deal in baseball if you don't know what that is. He was a baseball fan to the end, and I sadly, unfortunately, never saw him for that again. And it's tough because we always want that one moment, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. We're always going to want that one more moment with him. And I remember the last day I saw my dad, and I don't remember my last moment with him, but I do remember all these amazing memories with him, just like I do with Brian. And one more time isn't be enough for any of us. And I miss him. The time we have on this earth is not enough. But we really should be measured by what we've done. And while Brian never had widespread fame, he always shone bright, and with that, there was always the darkness. And he was a passionate person, and as such, he was always battling his past. His demons were most of them not even his fault, just drawing the short straw in life sometimes, and maybe a penance for all of his natural talents and abilities. He had, there's some battles he fought that maybe I don't even know about, and I'll bet some of you don't know about. And he was a very complicated person. He fought his health, he fought loss and grief, he fought addiction, and I'll be remiss not to talk about that for a moment, because we've all had our own personal battles in some way or another, and it's great that we're starting these conversations with our own family and with our friends. And I know I too have had to face addiction myself and depression, but I was lucky. I was fighting the avalanche of life that Brian sometimes was fighting most of the time. And just know that we're all surrounded by loved ones, as Brian was too. And it's often even that it's not enough for someone to overcome in this life. And sometimes it's no answers, no easy solutions, no on-off switch for grief, for sadness, for stress, for addiction, regret, and so on. But just know in Brian's memory that you're surrounded by loved ones, by support systems you may not think are there. That there's people here in this room, and in your friend groups and peers and neighborhoods, even strangers online who want to help. And there's no magic pill. You didn't pass for the lack of being loved, and we all loved him fiercely, and we all tried to make him better, and he's worthy of that love. To that effort, no doubt. But know, wherever you're going through, we're here. I'm here. Your loved ones are here. Brian was taken us from us too soon, and I wish I could write a book with all my memories of him, that I'm sure there was an anecdote or story or memory I could share that I'll be kicking myself next week for not remembering right now. But that's the thing about Brian. He'll always make memories for us. He's always worthy of an anecdote or story or memory, and he'll never be forgotten. There's a quote from a movie, Blade Runner. I don't think if Brian knew it or anything about it, but it embodies the end of Brian's life. And in the movie, there's a line that goes, "The light that burns twice as bright, burns half as long, and you have burned so very, very brightly." Brian, your life indeed burned so very, very brightly, and I wish it could have burned longer. Sorry. I love you, Brian. Hope you're at peace. I'm gonna miss you. We're all gonna miss you. And thank you for my childhood. And thank you for being my cool older brother. Rest in peace. Thank you.
Well, we have a closing hymn now, and then we have receptions, food in the, what do we call this, fellowship hall or what?
Culture hall.
Culture hall, basketball court,
Yeah.
all-purpose room.
There we go.
Yes. So everybody, with your hymnals, turn to 152. God be with you. I don't think I know this one, so okay. But, oh yes, I know this one. Okay.
One note.
The one note.
I looked at it.
152.
152. Yeah. All right.
Oh, come on.
God be with you till we meet again. Bye.
conclude our service, and we're gonna have Ken do a blessing for the food as we head over there. But I just want to thank everybody again, and we could share more stories when we're over there. So if anybody has things to share, absolutely go for it. And but thank you all. Thank you for sharing all the different memories of Brian, and I know that we all loved him, and we wish that we could have more time with him. And but the time that we had was very special, and to all of us in unique ways and in beautiful ways. So, and with that said, let's have a bless card.
Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this opportunity we've had to be able to talk about Brian and be able to relive his life and be able to see what a wonderful life he had. And we're thankful for everybody that contributed to these discussions and being able to tell us the experiences they've had with Brian. And it's really been a really touching meeting that we've had here, and we really appreciate the time we've had with Brian. At this time, please bless this food, the rest of our take, that it'll be good for us and we'll enjoy it, and we ask you to please bless us all to remember Brian in a good way and know that he is happy where he is right now. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right.